let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hello, I'm a big Browns fan, and I just wondered some replacements for Jadeveon Clowney. As you know, he says he's 95% sure he's not coming back to Cleveland, which we need somebody else opposite of Myles Garrett. A few free agents that come to mind: Melvin Ingram, he's pretty good. You have Yannick Ngakoue, Benny Curry from the Jets. It's his second year, and he's been pretty good, and he's more like a D-tackle. He's probably switching around the D-tackle at the end. You also have Keelan Farrell from Las Vegas. He was the 4th overall pick from Clemson. He wasn't the best, but he's been a big run stopper in Raiders defense. Larry Ogunjobi, bring him back to Cleveland maybe, you never know. John Franklin Myers is another name that comes to mind. I just wanted to know your thoughts. Thank you. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I would like him to, and I've heard a couple of people mention this, instead of getting the high-end, 10, 11, 12, $14 million, go get 2 $5 million guys that are going to produce somewhat.
And I also wouldn't underestimate the confidence that Jim Schwartz has in his ability to get more out of some of the young defensive tackles on this team than what Joe Woods did. And given that we have been fairly critical of Joe Woods, I would also make it fair to assume, let's not assume that Joe Woods was getting the most out of these guys, right? That these guys are just who they are because that's what they look like with Joe Woods, right? Who knows? The right person might get a hold of Jordan Elliott, and he might turn into a decent player. Same thing could be said for Perion Winfrey, who showed some flashes this year. But let's say the right coach gets a hold of him, all of a sudden Perion Winfrey looks like a starter. So the free agent names, we know that they're good, but the problem hasn't been that we have guys that we don't know that are good. We knew that a lot of these guys are good, right? I could go down a list of players that we knew are good that didn't play well this year for whatever reason. John Johnson, we know he's good. He was good in L.A. Denzel Ward, we know he was good. He's good, been good before, you know what I mean? As much as the names would give us immediate comfort, I would say also what's going to be real important for this team is what can they get out of the names already on the roster, because those names are going to be important, right? Especially Jordan Elliott and Perion Winfrey. You got to get something out of those guys, and you got to get something significant, and that's what I'm hoping that Jim Schwartz can bring to this team.
All right, I'm going to reference it again. Find out what those guys do well and ask them to do that. And don't ask them to do the other things that they don't do as well. So let's hope Jim Schwartz unlocks the talents that they have that made them NFL draft choices. Quincy Carrier.
Yeah, and to that point,
go ahead.
My bad. To that point, you might want to add in, like, okay, let's say Perion Winfrey, what he does really well is he attacks and he can get penetration there, but he's not going to be somebody who holds a double team. Instead of having Perion Winfrey try to do both, just have Perion do that and sign somebody to take the double team, right? It takes that kind of like commitment to it to fix these things, but I think it doesn't all have to be in one player. They might sign somebody who's really good at this, or they might find somebody in camp who's really good at this, and they'll be like, okay, this is going to be the guy that does this. This is going to be the guy that does that. I think a lot of Joe Woods tried to have a lot of guys who had the answer to a lot of different problems without having to switch out personnel. And we found out that that's just not a sustainable way to build a defense.
Yeah, and Jim Schwartz has already said they're going to be waving defensive linemen in. That's the way he does it. Mm-hmm. He likes to rotate them and have a number of them playing.